You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy episode 14. I'm Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
And today we're talking about the event that the publishing initiative that it's basically like the death of DC. So we're talking about DC Rebirth. Oh boy.
Yes, which is ironic because it was supposed to be, like you said, it's a rebirth.
But
yet,
it's like it had the opposite effect. It's like,
exactly.
okay. So yes, I label it the death of DC. So let's get this crazy train rolling. So what we got here is, okay, Rebirth was not the big hit that everyone that comic Twitter tries to tell you it is. And which is interesting and kind of sad because Rebirth has a lot of cool ideas. The problem with it, particularly in that first year of Rebirth, it is basically screw the new 52 and everyone that likes it.
Yeah, it definitely was a petty move of like the old guard telling the new kids, stay off my lawn or something like that.
And I said this when yesterday, it was yesterday we covered the Reign of the Supermen movie, and I talked about how, like that one, Rebirth is basically, because I could take it if you said, okay, we want to try in another direction. I'm like, I disagree, but okay, fine. But then when you start to like be extremely petty about, like, have Diana saying, no, this is true, this is the way it should be. I'm like, what?
Yeah, using her, that was the main problem, is using Wonder Woman because she's the goddess of truth, so they took that as this is the truth and used her overall, of all the books actually as a mouthpiece for these writers, and it was so obvious.
The problem also is, going to the writers, you had guys that were like super like into their own like nostalgia in the time when they wrote that was like so big, like Jurgens, and they were like, I don't want to write in this new continuity. Then don't write for DC because this is the way it should be, and that's what I would say. See, the problem with DC at the time, DC had no balls. I'm sorry to be so crass about this, but that's really what it is. They didn't have the balls to tell these creatives no. A lot of editorials don't have that. But I'm like, DC specifically, because DC should have said, okay, if you don't want to write these characters the way they are now, I'm sorry. This is selling. Either get with the program or get out.
Yeah, the way, especially for the Superman books, it was the pettiness of his suit. That was the main thing.
That's what started.
It was the no trunks thing and the armor, not the fact that, different artists have different interpretations of the suit. So sometimes it looked like armor, sometimes it had too many lines, it just all depends on the artist. In the trunks, it's kind of like, okay, it's 2011, 2012 or whatever.
At the time,
he needed an upgrade, and they were trying to move him back to the golden age, of course. So you have the t-shirt and jeans, but it's like seeing him in t-shirt and jeans instead of the red underwear. It's like, oh my God, this is, they called him like super bro or something like that. But it's like,
imagine if DC's way of fixing it, they brought back the trunks, but it was a Speedo.
oh. So when he had the jeans and tee, he represented the golden age. Every man you know, people's
Mm-hmm.
champion of oppressed. That is the symbol of why he wore, that. And then the Kryptonian suit was obviously Kryptonian. It was to, I mean, yeah, Martha making his suit is fine. Um, I just, when you think of it, especially with today's generation, a lot of times kids ask, why is this?
Mm-hmm.
Or it doesn't make sense. And they do pick apart a lot of things. So it's kind of like, okay, if Superman has on a suit, a suit jacket or whatever, how does his cape fit into his, pants and in under his jacket or something like that? And the whole well, he wears clothes way too big for him. And then visually in the comics, yeah, you can kind of get away with that, but in the movies it doesn't make sense, you know.
No,
So
and the thing about it, because I was watching the documentary about Jim Lee, and it was coming, it came out around the time of the New 52, and he was talking about. So we looked at it to your point. Yeah, because yeah, Superman's iconic, but they wanted to like figure out ways to like to make him like more modern because they recognize that like a lot of stuff may seem outdated. So the suit was, why don't we try and make the suit more alien because he's an alien.
exactly. So that's basically the whole overall, concept is to put the characters more so in reality. In what if they were real, Um, Diana, Diana pretty much to me was the same in
Mhm.
in terms of she wasn't like the doe-eyed, fish out of water, um, too much of the happy-go-lucky that, Perez had.
Mhm.
She was she was a little bit more stern. She was, the warrior type thing, but at the same time, she still wanted to have fun.
Well,
She,
and you could argue that being with Clark softened her.
yeah, she really he made her feel like she didn't have to be guarded and she could do the things that she wanted to do. She wanted
Mhm.
to have ice cream, simple as that. She wanted to be able to just have a a a, a regular dinner, a something like that
Just
instead
want
of
to be
being so,
normal.
yeah, she did. But as you can see from Justice League 3 or, when um Steve was, talking down to her, it was like, you have to go see the president, you have to do this, you have to do that. And then
And it was kind of
in
funny in the Justice League War movie. Wonder Woman calls him out, and she's like, "You sound like my mother."
right. And that's a bad thing. I mean, you telling your like whatever he's supposed
So,
to be to you.
at the time it was more like attaché, and I'm like, she just shot you down, dude, and you're an Air Force pilot, so it's even more funny.
And then you have her in I think it was Justice League 15 where they have their first like dinner, and she said it. She says, "I've never had a dinner like this. Just no one knows who I am. I'm not in my uniform, you know, anything like that." Um
And then also what's kind of interesting off of that is that he said it's important for us to like how is when she asked him why does the glasses work, and he goes, and by he I mean Clark. Clark goes, well, it's like a lot of people probably see us from like really far down, so they don't necessarily know what we look for or what we look like. But it's also I don't think they know that it really registers with them that we can have like just a life outside of the superheroes in Justice League. And then she told him, I don't have a life outside of this.
yeah, and she really doesn't. Like
Mm-mm.
even before, New 52 and post crisis, she really didn't. She was with Julia and Vanessa. Her supporting cast has been, on and off for a very long time. She didn't have a stable like location. She had the Wonder Dome, she had Boston, you know, um, London or something like that, but it wasn't really stable.
Mhm.
New 52 gave her, she was in London, and that was very unique for her, and it fit. Um, being in Metropolis sometimes, something like
Mhm.
that. But she was getting a more stable, you know, supporting cast, location,
Mhm.
identity, because even the Diana Prince identity wasn't within post crisis, not
Mhm.
so much. She was just ambassador, and she
Prince, yeah.
had a more
Well,
public idea.
actually, the Diana Prince showed up after she killed Maxwell Lord, I think.
Yeah, but that was still kind of like at the very pretty much the beginning
Mhm.
of the end. So
Mhm.
I don't really count that.
Okay,
And
I see.
and it's the fact that she had to have that identity afterwards, instead of like a genuine knowing that that's who she was, though.
Mhm.
Like when the New 52, it was more so for her to have the personal, quiet life that she was curious about, and that she ended up wanting. Not that she actually has to. It was more so like an identity to hide, and that's something that she didn't want. It wasn't their identity, which I love that part in Throne of Atlantis,
Mhm.
the movie, where Clark is saying it's not about hiding, it's just blending in. Like,
Mhm.
we're just ourselves, unique selves, but we can blend in with the crowd of other unique people.
We can be
That's
one of them, and then I love Diana. The difference eludes me.
Yeah, she's like, what does that mean?
Mhm.
And how he explained it, it again brings back the whole focus of their relationship. The purpose is to embrace the uniqueness in the culture, and how the world in general, we are blended in together. We all come from different backgrounds, ethnicities and all that, and we blend in together. That was the purpose of the relationship. And that's the thing that DC, with Rebirth, made it seem like that was a bad thing, that they had to conform to, this regular way. So with Rebirth, how, saying that post crisis Superman was better, he was the real
They
one.
refer to they refer to him as the real Superman. Which, by the way, I just want to examine. I just want to say one thing. Real Superman, when they established that he's been in the New 52 since the beginning, but he doesn't do anything when the Anti-Monitor shows up and
Yeah,
kills Darkseid. I'm pretty sure you should show up, dude.
yeah, he doesn't do anything besides, like, they say that he helps within the shadows or something like that, or that he, does this and that. But even with the Convergence spinoff
Mm-hmm.
and the sequel to it, with the action backups that he had recently,
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like that the whole thing was just on this Hamilton or whatever
No.
they were, on this isolated farm.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't seem like it actually impacted anything. His whole adventure or whatever in that Hamilton town, it didn't seem like it actually was notable to anything.
Because it
And
wasn't.
well, yeah. Um, then you have Wonder Woman, that you say that she was in um in an illusion for 10 years.
By the
So
Sons of
she's
Ares.
Yeah, so she gets bit by a grass snake, basically. So for 10 years she's, walked around. You can poke holes in a lot of this, because where was she for 10 years? Who did she communicate with for 10 years?
Yeah, well, you know what's kind of funny? It's like when you ask where does she go whenever she went to Themyscira, they never answer that. That's the astounding part. I'm like, at least if you had attempted to give me an answer to that question, I could have at least gone, okay, at least I may think it's a really BS reason, But hey, at least they explained that plot hole, because that's a very big plot hole. Plus,
Very big.
having her
Especially,
have like a big like a going crazy and deciding that past was like not really me, and I'm like, oh, again, vindictive as hell.
yeah, and seeing her in a straitjacket was
Mm-hmm.
going overboard. And of course, you had a man send her to a psychiatric ward, and then she's basically codependent on him emotionally and mentally, because you give her this breakdown, which doesn't make sense. And then she has a lasso of truth. So you're saying that the lasso like never showed her anything of the truth.
Yeah,
Um,
somehow the lasso never ticked her off. Hey, this isn't really real.
Batman, when Damian was dead, Batman went to New 52, the mascara.
Mhm.
He interacted with Alaka.
Yes, you're telling me Batman has the illusion too?
Yeah, where
Wait,
did
wait.
Hush?
Superman and Deathstroke went to Themyscira. You're telling me they were hallucinating as well?
Yeah, none of that makes sense at all. And then you have even the gods. It's like the whole thing of strife, of arrows, of final days, when or truth, when Clark has to go to the gods to um have his challenges or whatever, his
Mm-hmm.
identity, and he goes, so did he have an illusion about the gods too? You know,
It's when you really examine it, it's kind of funny. Until right now, I didn't really communicate. I didn't really. It didn't click for me really how BS that entire Wonder Woman Rebirth like storyline is. And I'm like, Rucka, you're a competent writer. What are you doing?
it was I think it was the artist that um it was a comment on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and she basically said, put the New 52 BS, and she spelled it out, in the trash. So they basically they were very much hell bent on, by any means, even if it is BS themselves, to mock it, throw jabs, anything like that, erase it. And even when she was trying to get with Steve that and make herself feel guilty and saying how she's not good with romance, how she can't love. But you go back to the New 52 run, and her main goal was to fight crime or whatever like that, and then she wanted to get married, she wanted to have kids, she wanted that life. So how can you say that on one end that you know I don't know what romance is, but at the same time I'm picturing myself married with kids with this person, that I did love. And even the unpublished published Superman and Wonder Woman 30 and 31. She says it. She says that she loves him, and that Clark, and that she knew that she would give her heart to him. So for Rucka to make her seem like this cold-hearted person, and she actually was only with him for
Because it was
simple
easy, and I'm like,
which
no.
which doesn't make sense, because the whole world was against them as a couple.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
formed another Justice League because of this, dude. What part of that is easy?
Yeah, what is easy about that? And then with being with Steve, first she was only with Steve for basically Rucka's run. So it was 25 issues, and it only for a year and a half, or a year or something like that. And it was really so petty, because he was Steve was very whiny. You
He
know,
was a stalker, really. Let's face
they
it.
tried to make him seem like this action dude. They wanted him to have like this a-hole mentality, and you wonder why would Diana even go with that? And the way he
But
wasn't
Brit, opposites attract.
sure. I mean, it really didn't give you a reason of why they're together other than really because of the movie.
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia, even nostalgia, we
Or
went back to that last week or so, that
yeah.
even with being with him, he wasn't for 25 to 30 years post crisis, he was her father figure, big brother. And within the Bronze Age, Silver Age, he was terrible. The stalker thing came about, being jealous of Diana having the power, and all those, type of shenanigans or whatever.
Or like in that scene in Justice League, I think it's 12, when she visits the hospital and he tries to emotionally manipulate her. And I'm
Yeah,
like, you're a D-bag.
yeah, and that's the thing. That is how Rebirth was she was emotionally manipulated because she felt guilty for being with someone else. And it's like, how can you, of course, the antis will accept that because it's throwing Superman and Wonder Woman as a couple under the bus. But you are making Clark and Diana look so shallow and just so out of character, and that their whole emotional, connection to who they are is only represented by one individual, which is Steve and Lois, which again, we debunked that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that is what happened. You have Rebirth Superman, he only cared for his family. Even with Hitch's Justice League, you have him just talking about Lois and John, Lois and John, Lois and John. The world is ending and you're only caring about them.
Which, and it's funny, I believe, I don't quote me on this, but there is a line in New 52 where I don't think it was in the Superman Wonder Woman book, but it was in one of the main DC books. And Wonder Woman says, Clark and I have an understanding that the world comes first.
Yeah. That was in Superman and Wonder Woman issue 11.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And ironically, she was talking to Lois about that. She said it. Yeah. Because Lois was like, so do y'all have like this understanding? Like, did y'all talk about this?
And
And
she's like, we
Diana
didn't
says,
have to.
we didn't have to. That's just what it is the world, comes first. Even, and they also said it in Superman and Wonder Woman 5 or 6, and Clark was wondering, can we do our jobs and be together? And she was like, if I didn't think we could do our job, we wouldn't be together. So yeah, their jobs are first. They are selfless like that. But with Lois and Steve, they are very selfish people. I mean, with the drown story, the
Oh,
Aquaman
yeah.
story in Rebirth, he let thousands drown just to take Lois all the way to the Fortress of Solitude. But and then
Exactly.
he kind of like says it to Batman, and Batman's like, "Is Lois okay?" Even Batman is worried about her. Like, it's okay that thousands drown and probably kids drown too, but as long as Lois is okay, it's all okay.
It's ridiculous. So the way we're gonna do this discussion, it's actually not just gonna be us to going back and forth per se. Brit and I are actual researchers, and so what we did is we found quotes from ICV2, Jim Lee, and primarily the man himself, Dan Didio, talking about Rebirth versus the New 52 and why it's important to constantly update your stuff. And also, at the end of this episode, there will be a certain chart that keen-eyed comics leaguers have seen before on a certain episode that Britt helped me do the research for. So, Britt, explain to the crowd, and by the way, all of these links, I will be providing all of my sources in the description below, all of the sources Britt sent me, because I believe in actually providing evidence, unlike a lot of purists on Twitter. So, Britt, briefly
Exactly.
explain real quick, what's ICV2 to people?
So that is basically just a website that gives you updates on overall sales of book scans of you know Marvel and DC's independent manga. They pretty much keep up with the pre-orders and um, what is it, the second printings or third or
Mhm.
whatever like that. And now that DC has changed their distributor from Diamond to I think it's Luna,
Mhm.
it it is a little bit more difficult to kind of gauge the pre-order sales, the numbers, estimates, but they do have rankings, which I think it still works out just a little bit. It is going based off of like 100 comic shops, but it gives you a little bit of, you know, what,
It's a sample size, but
yeah,
it's a very telling sample size.
right. So with this was before they transitioned to Lunar. So they were still using Diamond at this point. So they were able to um kind of compare Rebirth to New 52.
Mhm.
So with the thing about it, let's go back to the reason why New 52 came about. New 52 came about because DC's comic line was abysmal. It was in the gutter with the post crisis, and
Mhm.
nobody really. It was stagnant, which we get to that with a later
Mhm.
quote. And what kicked off this whole thing was WB felt like, okay, if we have no Batman, moving, making tons of money, then we need the comics to do the same. We need to have the movies, the comic book movies, and the comics themselves. Or if the comics can't get, any better, then we'll shut the whole thing down.
Yeah,
So
because when
they,
you think about it, they have a good point because these are the most iconic characters of all time. People that have never touched a comic book before know who Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are.
and the thing is, they know that Marvel has basically been number one since the what 60s, 80s or
Yeah,
whatever. So
I think it was the 80s when they officially overtook DC.
yeah, so with this time, they've been struggling, you know, even with the crisis events and all of that, Marvel has been number one. So now it's just to a point where it's like I said, they pressured them, threatened to shut everything down.
Mhm.
So so what they did, and this is actually said in, we really have to um break down or review that documentary because it tells it
Yeah, we
right
are
there too.
100. That's gonna happen. What'll probably happen because Britt and I already have an episode planned for next week, I believe. But the week after that, we will do the documentary full on.
And so within the documentary, it says that they needed something new. They needed new fans because the older fans, and
Got
again,
older.
got older, wasn't interested in the stories, they recycling stories or it was just bad. You know, no one has interest. Even the writers, it seemed like they just didn't have anything to say anymore.
And it was like that was one point that I vehemently disagree when I had comics explained on because he said, "Well, you should always have Superman has to be evergreen," and I'm like, "That's easier said than done, dude." Because I got news for you. It sounds simple the way we say it because we're comic book fans and we're approaching that with those rose tinted glasses. But to a general audience member, I know this because I started off fairly recently as a general audience member, and my family are general audience members. until I showed them like Zack Snyder and explained to them what the New 52 was, they thought Superman was lame.
Yeah. This whole thing with Superman, and we talked about this, 40 years, of a drought within the movieverse, that it wasn't profitable, and then it's comics. With the 80s reboot, it long term, it really hurt the character. And now who's number one for DC? Batman. Batman can have, which right now is in a terrible state of this, he's going psycho or whatever, but he's still selling much better than Superman. And even a quote from the earnings call, a couple of days ago, someone even quoted saying DC, mainly Batman. It's like everyone knows within WB knows that Batman is keeping DC Comics afloat, and that is terrible. That is, something that is, I guess some bells should be going off in somewhere within the company if
Because
you
at this
know.
point, if Batman is your only character and you're not gonna work on like revitalizing the others, why don't you just stop publishing everyone else and just publish Bat adjacent books at this point?
And that's pretty much what's been said. If you're gonna have only Batman, it's like, and that's your only investment, that's your only faith, then yeah, just publish that. But they can't, because of contracts, because of the family agreements and all of that. You have to try, and we'll get to that later, because again, that is something that was said and you backpedaled on. So with the New 52, they needed it. Yes, it was rushed because WB was putting the pressure. And the thing is, what's awful is the revisionist and the
Gosh.
um and people not understanding or taking heed to the truth. It wasn't that New 52, yes, it was rushed, but why was it rushed? Because of WB putting pressure on them.
Yeah,
What
100%.
you know,
So, and yeah, 100%. You needed that kick in the balls, and that's what happened with like the movie. Again, it's astounding how the movies reflect the success of the comics, even though that
hmm
it's just astounding, and it led to that need for the New 52, and for like a good year, because I remember one of the quotes, I believe it was that Didio said, yeah, the first year, about year 1.5 or so was like skyrocketing sales. So you could have rid that train all the way. Then you had Convergence, Futures End, and all the other BS that led to this. But the point is, you had the momentum. And according
yeah,
to ICV2, you didn't have this with Rebirth, because it says obviously there's no obvious pattern of sales difference on the Rebirth issues versus the New 52 issues. Overall, Rebirth titles were selling about 3% less than the same issue of New 52, but that's not a major difference.
yeah, because, well, as the article explains further, it it tries to veer to Rebirth, as in like it sold better, but you have these bonus benefits. Rebirth had double shipping, which is admitted, later on. Rebirth had double shipping, and it depends on the timing of the reboot, or the relaunch or whatever. So, um, Rebirth was in June, I believe, and then, but New 52, I think, started in September. So it's, like I said, it's a seasonal thing. So you can't really compare too much, but at the same time you can, you know. It just all depends on the factors, which still, and so many even retailers are coming out now saying that no, New 52 sold way better, regardless of the controversy of it. it gave them a boost. It brought new fans, and that's what they wanted.
Because here's a reason why. This is the reason why I got into the New 52. I didn't have to read anything previous to this in order to understand who these characters were. It's just pick up, if you want to read Superman, Superman #1. With this, you had all that lore you had to read and all the other stuff they tried to cram back in. So I'm like, all of a sudden I have like, again, to quote Dan Didio, 75 years worth of comics I now have to reread in order to understand all the stuff they're referencing.
And the thing is, even with the references, because it didn't make sense, like what they were trying to cram
Wonder
back
Woman.
in, Wonder Woman and Superman's the whole history, they were cherry picking things. They were, cut, copy, and paste certain things, certain elements that they wanted, cherry picking things, and it still didn't make sense. So when you went back to read to understand, it confused you even more so because
Yeah.
it didn't match,
No,
especially
it
with
didn't.
Superman. Nothing matched. Nothing matched with Wonder Woman either because first you have her in uh World War II, her origin. And then Rucka has her present day, but she's in an illusion for 10 years.
But even with that, and Wonder Woman year one, she's her origins in the modern day, so they couldn't even get that straight.
Yeah. And then you have her supporting cast. If she was in um World War II, her supporting cast is supposed to be, where did Steve come from? Where did Etta come from? But then Rucka, he tried to put back in his run from post crisis, and it's like it doesn't fit. Nothing fits. Then with Superman, you had Dan Jargens, and his whole thing, he right out the gate, he had Doomsday. It's like that's
Because
the
he's a
only
one-trick
thing.
pony. That's why.
Yes, that's the only thing that he can reference to know who he is as a writer is Doomsday. So you have that, and then after that, I don't even think it's very forgettable whatever else he wrote afterwards. And then you have Reborn, that whole thing of that. And the thing with Reborn was it was a last minute thing,
Mm-hmm.
especially with trying to fit him into um continuity now of he knows that he is from another timeline or whatever like that, but no one else is supposed to know. And they are supposed to just go by the fact that they've always known him to be the Superman of this world, which again does not make sense because everyone else is pretty much of a younger age or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
has had different history. So you can't really say that this is the Superman that they've always known. That's they have different stories. It doesn't fit.
It doesn't.
With so yeah, with Rebirth, the whole thing, it really torpedoed continuity and sales.
Yeah, it did. Now, according to Jim Lee, we did see Lift Lee revealed. We didn't see the same level of Lift that we saw in the Killing Joke. That was a runaway hit, although that actually didn't tie into Suicide Squad. There were a couple images. Generally, our Batman-related backlist has always outperformed anything related to the movies. According to Lee, while Wonder Woman's sales boost didn't measure up to Batman's backlist, the comparison to Superman sales is far more favorable. Furthermore, Didio added that Wonder Woman's sales continue to see a boost today and that they overperformed expectations. At the end of the day, our sales, like the movie, had really good legs.
Yes, so right here, and also to quote that the only Wonder Woman has always had, sales that
Not the
for her
best.
character, yeah, for her character to be so with the general audience, they know who she is as an icon. They know who she is, her symbol. But her books didn't sell as well. So Perez is pretty much the only writer that gave her that boost that she needed. But of course, after he left the book, it started, dwindling down and everything like that. And it's like no one knew what to do with her solo book. And within that time, too, you had Kingdom Come that boosted her to be her place as, within the Trinity. It's not just because she's a character from the Golden Age that, we talked about, but also that she is an impactful character, that she is the mother of the superheroes, and she's supposed to have the respect. But Rebirth turned that all around with her ability, Rucka, her powers came later on after the fact or something like that. When she was stuck in jail with Year One, she basically turned into a Disney princess.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I'm like, oh god, this is
Yeah,
stupid.
so, you know, but she did all that. A lot of people on Twitter and, they would recommend Year One, but I remember 2016, I think it was one of the Comic-Cons, either NYCC or SDCC. I'm gonna say SDCC, but the artist, Nicola Scott,
Mm-hmm.
I think Jim Lee, which he refers, and it's the truth, that New 52 run is the run that really brings people into Wonder Woman's, make them interested in her for
Mm-hmm.
some reason. That many people say that it's an Elseworld. Okay, well, DC is known for better Elseworlds than their main line, so it's not really a knock.
And
It's
that's
not.
fine if you want to consider it that. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Kingdom Come is the greatest Elseworld that was supposed to be DC's future, but it's an Elseworld now or whatever. That is what brought people in. So if you try to knock it down or make it seem like, oh, that's just an Elseworld, no, that Elseworld is helping. So you have people who, um, so Jim Lee was praising the New 52 run, and Scott was not having it. So she so she basically, was saying how Year One is supposed to make her uh how she's supposed to be with the, doe-eyed
Mm-hmm.
and nicer, that kind of thing. But Jim Lee in his quote, he only says Joyce Perez and New 52 run is the main books that sell, and they do. You have the
Well, also hang on for a second. The other thing is that Nicholas Scott is arguing with the president of the company about what these characters should be like. I'm like, what a nerve.
she was kind of, she wasn't arguing with him. It was more so like she was trying to be civil with her comments,
Mm-hmm.
but you can tell that she kind of became a little nerved though
But
with it.
again, he's the president of the company. The way these characters are supposed to be are what he says they're supposed to be.
Right. So and even now, the you really don't see any reprints like of the trade of Wonder Woman Year One. You don't see, even with the lies, you don't see that. You see only New 52 run and Perez getting constant absolute,
I think they
the
have
absolute
like an
speed.
oversized hardcover thing, but it's not as because I got news for you. Guess what just got reprinted? New 52 Wonder Woman.
Yes, it just got reprinted, and
I need it.
Perez, I believe, has a reprint coming too, and those are the two runs that has um
That's what the
controversy
movie's based
controversy.
on.
Yeah, that's even in the quote too, saying that this is what, and this is what the book, what the movie was based on, and that is what brought people interested into Wonder Woman. Even with the flaws of the first movie, and nobody really wants to talk about the second movie, the first movie still gave the general audience some type of spark of who Wonder Woman was and made them want to know more about her.
But hang on, Brit, there was a second Wonder Woman movie?
Right. We don't even want to talk about that. It's kind of like, I even forget. Seriously, I forget that even happened.
I want to forget.
I think we all do. I mean, that was, I get the nostalgia, wanting it to be like the old school Linda Carter, homage type thing. But yeah, the execution was just awful.
But yeah, so here's Dan Didio talking about what we were talking about, the Rebirth. He says, we're hoping the Rebirth trades would be a little more robust, but they are running extremely strong, a little bit short of what the new 52 trades did when we first launched with those. And he said, you might see George Perez's book because of the Ares tie, or Brian Azzarello, Cliff Chang, the new 52 one because it has a lot of inspirational material in here. We make sure they are out there buying these types of products, and we are out there promoting it pretty heavily, both in the bookstore and the direct market. And then that's exactly what you're saying. It's like it's like, even with that, yes, were the Rebirth trade selling less a little bit, yes, but they're still selling less. So you're telling me there was a bigger audience for the new 52.
And what happened there with the trades was when they had the 2-month break with Convergence. Okay, so we go back to New 52. What hurt New 52 was DCU and Convergence. Because Convergence was supposed to be...
Maybe Future's End a little bit.
Yeah, but you basically went back to the original stories like really quick, so that really didn't do too much of an issue because you knew that the books were going to come back. So with Convergence first, you had this nostalgia bait. You had the books set in different eras, but of course you're baiting Superman fans to have post-crisis, and Dan Jargon's wanting to bait with having to introduce John. But the thing is, it was a competition with introducing that John, because it was already said that Frank Miller was going to introduce Dark Knight Returns John for Superman and Wonder Woman. So you have these two, and also it was a competition because BVS was inspired by both Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns and Death of Superman. So what happened there was, because Frank Miller wanted his Dark Knight Returns, the verse, to be out of like the multiverse and out of like, because DC had and we see the tendency of screwing stuff up. So he didn't want, and I believe that he had an issue because Peter Tomasi wanted to introduce Carrie Kelly into New 52 or something like that. And Frank Miller did not want that. He didn't want anyone messing up his character. So it was just like, keep my verse, whatever I do in it, even if it's controversial, even if it's messed up, at least I messed it up. I don't want anyone else messing it up. So Frank, I guess, wasn't interested in the clout, but of course Dan Jargon was. So he got a lot of clout for BVS adapting Death of Superman. And that's the thing, is that, sometimes when a movie is adapted, when a comic storyline or whatever is adapted, you get the royalties, you get everything. So Didio gave Jargon some clout. And of course, Jargons took that and ran with it. And he used that to, in a sense, manipulate Didio into thinking that his idea of putting John, forcing him into continuity, that it will be a good thing.
Which is hilarious considering that the death of Superman is such a small part of that movie. It's mostly Dark Knight Returns if you want to talk about which storyline it mostly takes from.
Right. And you have Jargons, like I said, manipulating, thinking that it was a good idea, and Convergence, because of the trades. They had Convergence trades, and it basically renumbered everything into number ones. So it kind of screwed up the market for that time. And a lot of retailers were confused, and it just totally messed stuff up. So that's when the sales trends of the trade started dwindling down.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the Convergence spinoff. And at first it was supposed to be an ongoing, so it was actually out of continuity, but it, again, the competition of, which he already knew, I guess, that they were going to reboot or, relaunch, whatever, kill off New 52 Superman and bring, force back this Superman to have John in continuity out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
That was just the thing. But yeah, that is what happened with trades, is that it started with Convergence, and then with Rebirth it just never recovered.
Mm-hmm. Going on. So next we have, again, more, a lot of this could be mostly Didio quotes, which I'm fine with that. He goes, let me tell a separate story for a second, then I'll get back to your question. The separate story is, I remember when we decided to retell the origin of a character in one of our books, a fan wrote me and said, why are you retelling that origin? You told it 20 years ago. In the comics in the old days, they used to retell the origin of the characters every year because they believed the audiences was turning over. And our reality is, we hope we are doing things to continually attract a new audience. Whether it's there or not, you always hope to believe that new people are coming in. The reality was we believe we were that there was a chance for an opportunity here. Rather than doing a whole-scale, world-changing, sweeping event that we've seen before, we want to do something with the New 52 that was a cold start and a new start again, just so it was the ultimate jumping on point. What I remember is most of the New 52 is everyone's talking about, what did you do with Superman? What did you do with Batman? You forgot that I had the iVampire book. We had and Frankenstein, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There were things that excited me the most. Those are the things that are missing from comics, the level of risk taking. Yeah, because what's interesting is that I actually read one of the only trade, the only volume that they have for like the OMAC thing. And the thing about the New 52 is that it launched with a lot of really, really, really like new and risky titles, like Justice League Dark. That's a New 52 invention, ladies and gents.
Yeah, a lot of people do not. Well, of course, Twitter, like I said, it's a lot of revisionist going on, because they say that New 52 didn't have diversity, or that
Ah,
some of these characters, how it ruined the characters. But again, DC, the characters that they supposedly wanted and loved, and again, in a later quote, they weren't supporting them. So with New 52, they tried it. They did have the diverse books right at the gate, but those books weren't being supported. And like he said in this quote, the audience, older audience, was more worried about what was happening to Superman and Batman than actually being interested into the diverse characters that they supposedly wanted.
Because,
Even
and this is why we may have to bump up the DC documentary episode to next week, because this is like so we reference this every freaking week. But again, I reference it the same thing. The George Carlin, that Carlin was talking to a fan. The fan said, "How could you kill Superman?" And he goes, "When was the last time you killed Superman? I didn't kill him. You did, because you didn't buy the book." With this, it's like, I want DC to have more diverse characters. Are you going to buy the books? Wait, I actually have to buy the books?
yes, even now, DC is trying to have these. DC is now, they have more mini series. Like if it's they start off with a 6 issues, and if it, I guess, passes a certain level of sales, then they'll extend it to 12. Then if it, reaches that 12 mark and it stays above sales expectations, then they'll give it an ongoing.
Or you have writers that will come out and say, okay, so now with the release of issue 4, we end the Chains arc, and now we move on to the next arc. So now they're thinking more in arcs instead of telling one big expansive story.
Exactly. So, I mean, when they say that, and even within 2 years now, they have to relaunch with new number ones, because they don't have any more ongoings except for um the core titles, which is Batman, Detective Comics, Superman, Action Comics. But even Superman, Batman is what, on 139, but Superman relaunched, and this is like the third relaunch of a number one. And I think that even Williamson said he's only going to be on the book for about, I think he said 30 to 40 issues. So even after he's, completed his 30 issues, which is what, like only 3 years, it's gonna relaunch back to a number one. But Batman is probably gonna be on 200 and something issues. Then you have Wonder Woman finally, kind of, after, the stagnant thing that she's been on, she's getting a number one. And Tom King says he's gonna stay on for a long time, but of course,
We'll see. The good thing I will say about that Tom King Wonder Woman book is that at least people are talking about the Wonder Woman book for once.
Yeah, they're talking about it, even with this controversy. And that's the thing. Even if it's controversial, as long as it's talking about it, it gets people interested in buying it. And that's the thing. And again, that is quoted. That if you don't have anyone to talk about it, and it's just like the average, basically just comfort, no one's going to talk about it. So no one cares to buy it.
Exactly. Next quote. All right. And so Dan Didio continues, that's why when people do a direct comparison between the New 52 and Rebirth, they say, well, look, Rebirth sold better. I said, sure it did on paper, because Rebirth double shipped at all your best-selling bookstores. It took your 20 top-selling books and double shipped them. The New 52 took 52 titles, out of which half of them were books that either nobody had heard of before or had characters people never even thought deserved to get a title. Maybe they didn't, but god damn it, man, it was worth a chance. I'd rather try a Mr. Terrific or Voodoo or OMAC. That Voodoo book was awesome. Then I would double ship other things just because I know it's going to sell. The chances for a win on something else is greater. That's the type of product that always got me excited. As an executive in a company, I'm telling you that if I can guarantee 5 years of strong sales and that we're going to have to shift it after 5 years, you're going to do you're going to go for the guarantee of the 5 years of strong sales and a change later down the road, rather than putting on cruise control and hoping for the best continuing on. ultimately something was going to have to change, or something was going to have to evolve. If you look at the comics, now you have an event a quarter, not even every year or every few years. Now you've got yourself in a cycle. The problem is you're constantly in a cycle now, and you can't get off that treadmill because you're constantly trying to top yourself, or trying to maintain artificial highs. With the new 52, my hope was we were going to leave it there. If we got 5 years of storytelling out of it, then I would consider it a win. And you did.
Exactly. But you contradict yourself with the fact that you did Rebirth,
Mm-hmm.
because you are within that cycle of events. How many events have DC had so far now, with
Oh my
Night
gosh,
Terrors, with
so
Gotham
many.
War, with every it's back to back. Beast World now, and then another event after that. You had the relaunches of Infinite Frontier, of now you're in Dawn of DC. You had Bendis whole thing of
Oh my
trying
gosh.
to do something. You
Hang
have
on. You said he who must not be named.
Why did you say that name?
yeah yeah, so you had all of this going on now. You put yourself in the cycle, and that is what Rebirth has done. New 52 gave you that risk that you needed. And and that's the thing, is that with Rebirth, like you said, you've double shipped the best-selling titles, which were Batman, Detective Comics, Superman, and
It's just
Action
more of the
Comics.
same. More than
Yeah, is
to your point that you've said many times on my shows, or like even our private conversations. What Didio is saying is that we started going back to what was killing the company in the beginning, and guess what? It's killing the company now.
exactly. And now that's all you are focusing on, is more Batman titles. Even the Elseworlds. They brought back the Elseworlds label, but the Elseworlds are still just Batman, mostly Batman. You brought back um trying to, like, what it Gotham by Gaslight, or what is it, that title or whatever. You
Mm,
have that title.
well, even beyond that, Black Label was supposed to be where we can tell more mature stories for all of our characters. It quickly became the Bat Label.
Yeah, I mean, Black Label in Elseworlds is basically the same to me. I really don't see the
Yeah, it's
difference.
really, that's why what's kind of funny is that when we were doing a stream talking about like the return of Elseworlds, I said, "Wait a second here. If Elseworld, if DC is going to start doing Elseworld stories again, what were all the other stories that I was reading for the past like 20 years?
Yeah, DC or the vampires thing, is that not an Elseworld?
Injustice, Deceased." I'm like, "What are these?"
Is, yeah. Um so trying to give labels, but it's still the same thing. Your audience, I would assume, isn't that, you know, uh like absent-minded.
Mm-mm.
I wouldn't think so. So you're trying to cut corners, and that is what DC is doing now. It Rebirth put them in a very stagnant state, because now you have Superman, that, which is again quoted, that with him being married, you're stuck. You're stuck with this one love interest. You're stuck with this one idea that he has to be limited in. Now he has to stay within the Daily Planet, which New 52, he was a freelance blogger. You have him with John. And John, the thing is, with aging him up and everything, he looks, the way he's drawn in some of the books, he's a carbon copy of Clark, and he looks the same age as Clark sometimes. So
Yeah, him and Connor, when they're like drawn together with Clark, depending on the artist, they basically look like clones, which it makes sense in Connor's case, but John, I'm like, no.
yeah. So and he's very redundant. He doesn't have he's supposed to be the new Superman, but he doesn't. He doesn't deserve the title. And
Nope.
honestly, in reality, there will never be another Superman. So
Yeah, and
what's his
I tell
actual
people this.
purpose?
What I always tell people is that if I were to go down my block to a random house, knock on the door, hello, I'm doing a survey, which might if I ask you just one question, who's Superman? And they'll say Clark Kent.
Yeah,
They're
they
not
won't
going to say
say
John Kent. It's the same thing with when they did Jace Fox's Batman. If I ask you what's Batman's real name, they're going to say Bruce Wayne. No one cares about these new other versions of the characters.
even John Kent, they would think that John Kent is his dad, his
Yeah,
pa.
because his name is Jonathan.
Yeah, so that's just you wrote this character in a corner. You know, there's nothing, and he's supposed to be a reporter now, too.
Oh God! So he's literally a clone of Clark.
Yes, and he's dating a reporter. So, yeah,
Oh boy,
that whole thing it's nothing new at all.
it would be
And that's the thing.
hilarious if his boyfriend had the LL initials. Then I'd be like, okay, now you're just making it obvious.
Honestly, I wouldn't doubt that that's probably what was gonna happen. But, if you ask Tom Taylor what why did you give him the name, he probably would say his name had LL initials
Mm-hmm.
at some point.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's a little creepy that you want Superman's son to be with someone named LL, but okay, it's a little odd.
Yeah.
Somebody
Well,
has an Oedipus complex.
I mean, that's again, this is the whole cycle thing. It's kind of like a self-awareness thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so crazy that the deal is basically airing out everything, and it's like, again, why did you do it? If you know that New 52 was, first of all, he admitted it was 5 years of success. Regardless of anything, you did have that success, while the rebirth only lasted a year and a half.
A year and a half. I think it may not have been his choice because it could be WB came to him and said you have to change this because of the Twitter fans are upset. Wouldn't be the first time WB has screwed stuff up because of something people said on Twitter.
Honestly, well, not exactly. It
Oh, really?
was his choice
Oh, okay.
because what he wanted was it's all because of Superman and wanting Damien to have a playmate.
Oh God, this
So,
is it's the same excuse as to why Wonder Woman has a daughter now.
yeah, it basically was Damien having they Didio liked the old 60s, 70s or whatever Super Sons,
Hmm.
that comic or
Hmm.
whatever. So he wanted that. And Jargons basically, like I said, manipulated the whole thing like, okay, well, I'll bring in um Superman's son. And John at first was supposed to have the same exact origin of being from a different timeline or Earth, you know, but he was rocketed to New 52 Earth.
Hmm.
And I'm guessing that if they were to stick with New 52 Superman, he would have adopted him or something like that, or, it would have been something still BS. And they would have probably tried to maybe break off Superman and Wonder Woman to have that. I don't know. Or he just would have been like an adoptive kid or a kid that came from another Earth or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, But it's still, the whole point of John was to give Damien a playmate
Mhm.
and to have the Super Sons title. Then, but they didn't know how to make it work. And the thing is, I still really don't understand, why did you have to kill New 52 Superman just for John, though? Like, it
Because
does not, it
the
still doesn't
fan
make sense to
base,
me.
because how are you going to market someone as the real Superman when you have this Superman that exists?
Which doesn't make any sense still.
It
And
doesn't.
even with DC and Didio knowing at that time that convergence basically just torpedoed your sales. DCU, um, you really just, I don't know. He said that the you part is you, the fans, and what you want. But at the same time,
No one wanted that though.
no one wanted the truth arc. And the thing is, how I feel about the truth arc, and especially how it was so stripping New 52 Superman from everything. Like, he went back to the jeans and tee, yeah, but he had the buzz cut. He had the Everyone was taken away from him. He had this anger issue. He, pushed Diana away and was
That's
mean
where
to
he gets the
her.
reputation of being an a-hole, and I'm like, he really wasn't. And I'm like,
And it
also another thing, no one wanted Tomasi on Superman and Wonder Woman. Just wanted to throw that in there.
yeah, he with saying that you wanted conflict and this drama thing or whatever, it's kind of like it was done on purpose to destroy New 52 Superman so you can force this Superman that obviously was not selling in the first place.
Yeah.
And it even more so came about when they started underselling the Superman and Wonder Woman title for the Convergence spinoff, which still only sold, and of course we'll get to that, 30, 30K.
That is abysmal
But
for
saying that,
for the Superman relationship that you claim to want.
yeah, but it sold that and continued to drop. That is something very telling, that you cannot listen to Twitter at all. Whatever they
No.
say is and um for comic writers now and retailers again to go on Twitter and basically say that sales are bad, um writers aren't getting compensated as they should, that Twitter is only like more or less 5%
Not
of
even.
yeah, not even 5% of the people who actually support the books. And for you to have to know that, and for this to be said year after year, again, what the bells are just not going off in this company's,
Mm-mm.
no one's mind.
No, they're not. Now, to quote Didio, honestly, the new 52, we're all very proud of that, regardless of whether it was up in 5 years or not. The audacity of that, what it stood for, the success of that at the beginning is something to be very proud of. The biggest pride comes from the fact that you got a chance to be involved in these stories and storytelling. Somebody said to me, your name will be in the masthead in the byline of thousands of books. I never really thought of it in that way at the time, but that's humbling in its own right. It's a piece of history. The funny part is now I go back and look at all my old comics and I look at those old names in the masthead, and I got a chance to work with those guys. So many of my heroes and idols when I grew up reading, that's a thing that's exciting. What more can I ask? I would have been happy with a year's worth, and I got 18 years worth of it.
Yeah, to say he didn't say Rebirth. He said
No.
that New 52 he was proud of. So regardless of the controversy, it's the fact that New 52 gave, that's what it was. It wasn't just an experiment. It was something to, it was a risk that succeeded, that brought in new fans, and they know that, but it's kind of like, why don't you admit that? Why do you have to beat around the bush about it? Be honest about it.
Yeah,
That,
be proud of your accomplishment.
yeah, be proud of
Which
it.
is why the
Of,
documentary took massive balls, because it basically sung the praises of the New 52 while giving Rebirth the shaft.
yeah, you you have this initiative. You had this, again, the reason why New 52 came about was because it was forced. It was like, you need to do something or this company is closed. And they did it. Regardless of anything, they did it, succeeded with bringing in the new fans, with bringing in the controversy, with having people love these obscure characters, even if the books, yes, the books of these obscure characters didn't meet expectations. And like you said, you wouldn't think so because the only thing that they've had was Superman and Batman. They only had their core.
Mm-hmm.
The other characters didn't have solo books. They were featured in other books that sold better. And that's what made people love them. But when it came to actually supporting their solo books, no one cared to, you know, to support their solos.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing that, again, Twitter keeps forgetting, or no, they don't forget, keeps
They
ignoring.
ignore,
They keep
exactly, they ignore.
they keep ignoring the facts that you Twitter are is not supporting. You keep talking, you keep tweeting, you keep saying that you want this and that. It was a Reddit post that was talking about New 52, ragging on it or whatever earlier. And it was saying about Cassandra Cain, Batgirl. She was left out of New 52. That all of these characters were left out. And it's like, okay, well, Batgirls just had a relaunch with Infinite Frontier with Becky and Michael.
And plus, well, not only with that, because I think that series ended, but she's the Batgirl on the Birds of Prey.
And Birds of Prey is, I think it's like top 30, but it's going down.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you want these things, you gotta support the books. If you're not gonna support the books, they're not gonna highlight these characters. I don't know how many
Yes.
different ways we could say this.
Yeah. And Batgirls was her book with Stephanie Brown. And still, that book just totally bombed.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you're asking for these characters. You're complaining about what New 52 did wrong, but you're proving it right when you don't support the books.
Exactly, and it's like and again, I go back to that Carlin quote where he goes, "I didn't kill Superman, you did." If you can't not water a plant for so long and expect it to still arrive, to be
Right.
alive. So next quote. He said, "We spent a good 6 to 8 months on year one, rethinking designs, characters, fill-ins, so it all made sense. As things progressed, moving quicker, we spent less time on developing. By the time we got into the third year, we're just dusting things off and dropping them in, not making sense. You feel the wheels coming off the cart. We get to Rebirth, reinstitute some of the things we felt were missing, but also put the things that made you want to revamp the line in the first place, and things got stagnant again. That fans always ask, does this book matter? But that the only way they matter is if they are doing something that makes a change, moves away from the core, and that can upset people. What happens is we get to Rebirth, we introduce some of the things we felt were missing, but what also happens is you put in the, okay, so I must have put that in. Oh no. What happens is we get to Rebirth, we institute some of the things, but what happens is you put in stuff that makes you want to revamp the line in the first place, and things get stagnant again. Everybody says don't change them anymore, but the whole purpose of storytelling is change and evolution. He makes a very good point there.
Right. So with this, what he's saying was New 52, they had the whole redesign and everything like that. But when people, this is when writers basically started to be real kind of petty and wanting to go back to, their post-crisis type thing, talking about Superman being, he wasn't the Superman that they grew up with and everything like that. And then you have writers like the Superman and Wonder Woman book that exceeded expectations, and you're now having these expectations for the relationship that you have to keep it going. And within that is when something is working and they probably expected it, to just be something temporary, maybe, or something like that. Like you said earlier, they end up falling back into the laziness or being scared. So with New 52, that's what it was. It was that they started to become lazy with wanting to go back to their comfort zone and scared because the risk that they took, they don't want to keep going with it. But then with Rebirth, like he said, and the thing about reinstating, the main thing that you reinstated was the marriage, the Superman and Lois marriage. And that was the thing that made you want to reboot in the first place. He said that was basically his main thing of why he wanted the reboot, because that was one of the main issues, especially with the Superman books during the early 2000s, was the marriage and everything was stagnant. So Rebirth made things stagnant. And we said this all the time, but to have it quoted by who was a former head of the company, it's like we're, pretty much our criticism isn't just being New 52 fans and being bitter or salty about how they basically ruined it, which we have all right to be bitter and salty because,
oh yeah, particularly when you have DC creative basically saying screw you to us all the time,
and the fact that you're not real fans or whatever like that, we have all right to. But the fact that we're being validated because, like I said, the farmer head says that Rebirth made things stagnant, which we have said this. It's kind of like, okay, so if you know this, why don't you bring back, and with Jim Lee too being the head, and he knows he's the one that redesigned for New 52. He's the one that was pretty much the driving force of Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship with Jeff Johns and just everything that was going about. So if you know this, you know the sales, why don't you create a line that brings back the New 52? If you can bring back post-crisis status quo, knowing that it was stagnant, knowing that this is the reason why you revamped and had a reboot in the first place, you can bring back New 52, which took that risk and succeeded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. It's like, I'll put it this way: DC listened to the overly nostalgic, and look where it got them. DC should listen to the people that actually came in at the time when they wanted them to, and stayed. So, and we'll talk about that when we get to the last slide on the sales chart. Next one. So, more on the New 52. Didio says, I used to joke, which is not a joke anymore, when I first got to DC about sales on a number of books and price increases. And the simple math was that a book at $2.99 selling 40,000 copies, turning the same profit that a book that was $8 did 25,000 and a $15 one did 10,000. But the $10,000 problem book had a hardcover. You had beautiful paper. It didn't have to hit a schedule. Everybody said, let's make more of those. And I said, here's the problem. I make more than those 10,000. I lose 5,000 people. Like 40,000 readers goes goes to 35, 25 goes to 20, 10 goes to 5. We're out of business. And the answer becomes, well, we'll just raise the price. And I said, great. We're going to create a $1,000 comic for 1,000 people. And that'll be our entire audience at the end of the day. And I think that we are going there right now at the time. And those 1,000 people keep getting older because every few years they do a survey of the average age in the direct comic market, and it keeps going up. And we keep on doing everything because ultimately I'm going to get myself in trouble. We're lazy or scared. Oh boy, it's either one. Lazy meaning I've got this built-in easy access to an audience that pretty much buys anything, no matter how much they complain. Oh my gosh. So therefore we can just create for them and sit and sort of sit back and relax. Scared is I'm afraid to try anything new because I don't know what's out there in terms of audience. Maybe there isn't anything out there, and if it doesn't work, we're done. Honestly, most of the people I've upset is because I tried. It's because it's an interesting thing because everybody asks for a change and no one really wants it. Damn it, that's what I've been saying. That's the unspoken truth. The second reality is you have to be able to change your distribution and reach also. I also refer back to the 70s DC Comics, which is my DC. I adore it top to bottom. Why? Because it's so crazy, but it's also only 40% superhero. My gosh, he's right. I've been saying this for so many years. And he calls people lazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
The quotes that are here, I pretty much knew this would be your reaction
when
I sent them to you.
Oh my gosh.
When I sent this to you, I was like, he's gonna get a kick out of this because exactly.
I've been saying DC's lazy for years. Then we have the former head of DC saying, yeah, we are lazy or scared. And the reasons we're lazy or scared, exactly what I was saying.
Yes, because the laziness is they are in a comfort zone of they are comfortable with this small margin of fans, and they will complain just a little bit, whatever, but this small amount will maybe support, but you have a set amount though, and then but you are losing still the masses because you don't want to take the risk, which that's what Superman and Wonder Woman brought, was the controversy, the complaining, but the book sold over 100K.
Yeah, and honestly, yeah, it was a big risk to break up the iconic Superman and Lois relationship and put him with Wonder Woman. It was a bit of a risk. It massively paid off, though.
It was a risk only because you feel like comic fans, because you didn't take in consideration to the general audience. The thing is, with Superman and Wonder Woman, because they have been pretty much promoted, or they've been promoted as a couple with merchandise, with advertised. That's what I want to say. Advertised with merchandise. Advertised with, sometimes DC had these certain little clips of something, and Halloween, like I've mentioned, you have couples that automatically want to be Superman and Wonder Woman.
Hell,
There's
Comic-Cons, they do that.
Yes. The very first, when Superman and Wonder Woman started becoming advertised together in the 70s, and they had these birthday cards and Valentine's cards, and it would say, happy birthday to my Superman from your Wonder Woman, or the Valentine's card. And this is the quote that everyone uses, and it's always printed on on a t-shirt or something like that.
Speaking
It
of
says
t-shirts, look what I found.
that is cool.
I need it. I need it. But yeah, the amount of Superman and Wonder Woman merch that they have, the one of them wrapped in the freaking lasso. Hang on.
Yeah, that is on Amazon, I believe.
Yeah, all this is Amazon. The very fact that all of this merch exists officially by DC Comics, mind you. It's not like
Exactly.
some Teespring store. No, officially by DC Comics, and they still sell it. I'm like, I'm not a business major. I was a political science major, so maybe this is out of my field of expertise. But I'm pretty sure it makes good business sense. If you look at what sells well and what one of your verticals, maybe you should keep, and that sold well, it would sold well across the board. Yeah, keep it.
Yeah. The Superman and Wonder Woman statue, the Kiss statue, that was
I'm still
used
trying to find
for,
that. It's like $900.
yeah, that was used for cake toppers for weddings. It was even someone, he was searching for it and he finally found one and he used it as the backdrop to propose to his girlfriend.
Oh, that's
It
sweet.
was the Christmas miniature statue. People used it as Christmas ornaments, had it for Christmas. These, as far as t-shirts and hoodies and stuff, they actually have a label brand called Lovebirds.
I saw that. I saw that's what that was.
Yes, and that they even have cell phone cases too.
I need
They
one. Jeez,
they
there's
use
Brit. My credit card is gonna absolutely despise you when this show's over.
they even have a bill folder with the Darwin Cook image
Oh,
too. Yeah,
Brit,
there is a
my
lot
credit card
of
is bleeding right now.
yes, there is a lot of Superman and Wonder Woman merch, and the like I said, it started within the 70s, and it is a quote. I am his Wonder Woman. She is my no. I
I am her
am
Superman. She's
Superman,
my Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is the quote that has been for decades, and I see it all the time on Instagram posts, on people having their maternity shoots when
Mm-hmm.
at pregnancies, the anniversaries, the weddings, the proposals. I see power couple during Halloween. You know, I guess Halloween people are kind of dwindling down of not caring for it anymore. But from the families and couples that I did see on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, um, they hashtagged power couple. And I guarantee you 50% maybe are not avid comic fans. So for them to know to hashtag power couple, and well, Superman and Wonder Woman was on made headlines, made news. So for them to know the marquee and to know that Superman and Wonder Woman is the power couple shows the impact that it has and how so many people prefer to dress up as Superman and Wonder Woman than try to. I don't even know how you can dress up as Clark. Well, with
Well,
Clark, you
what I've seen people do is they dress up like a journalist, but what they do is they have the shirt open and the S underneath it.
yeah, I've seen that Clark. Yeah, that's basically what the Clark outfit is even Party City or Halloween, Spirit Halloween, the costume stores, they actually have Superman and Wonder Woman pajamas, and you can zip up together for
That's
matching
great.
for
Hey,
matching.
it's, that gives a new meaning to zip me up, huh?
Oh my God, yes. So you can be attached basically to
My
together.
gosh, that's great.
And then they have the matching at Party City. They had the matching. They actually did have Clark Kent and Superman, so you can have Clark's the S with kind of like the rip shirt um with the glasses. They even have glasses that you can buy and paired with the Wonder Woman lasso and the Wonder Woman uniform. And that was a pairing um Halloween costumes along with Batcat, and honestly Harley and Joker are still being promoted together.
Hmm.
So
Which is
the
hilarious considering the fact that, as far as I know,
she's
she's
with
with
Ivy.
Ivy. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a bit hilarious, and it goes into, by the way, this quote. I want to get into this. So Dan Didio continues on from what I said earlier. You got westerns, you got romance, you got mystery and horror and science fiction. All this other stuff moving around, and 40% superheroes. You go to the direct market, 100% superheroes or 85% superheroes. Why? Because that's what the direct market wanted. And as the story is told, popular, successful books in the newsstands that were profitable were being canceled to free up resources to create maybe not as profitable, but more focused books for the direct market, which was superhero based. As we narrow ourselves, we created this very tight little box, and it was fed by Fandom. Fandom owning stores and basically only buying what they wanted as the gatekeepers of what the industry went to. So we lost a lot of opportunity. Oh my gosh! And as the prices went up, we lost people a little more. But what I did during my time at DC, not immediately the first thing we did was the focus line, which is basically the tagline: superpowers, not superheroes, meaning people with powers and not knowing what to do with them, not immediately putting on a cape and cowl and fighting crime or whatever. I tried to do the pulp line, which with the first wave heroes, trying to different things. Even the young animal line and all these other different types of books. I mean, my goal for New 52 wasn't about, unmarried Lois and Clarks, although that was a driving force. Oh my gosh! Or just restarting the books at #1 because we know they're going to sell better. Dang it! If it's to do a vampire book and Men at War and OMAC and Demon Knights and all these weird, crazy ideas under a big umbrella of attractions, with the hope that that umbrella gave them enough life. My two favorite books coming out of the New 52 was Animal Man by Jeff Lemire and then early Scott Snyder Swamp Thing. Brilliant, brilliant. There were a lot of good things happening on that line that weren't just about the fact that Superman wasn't wearing his shorts, Oh my freaking gosh! Wow! This is my favorite. This is gonna be my favorite episode, like, of all time, of any Comics League show we've ever done. This is my favorite because this is Dan Didio saying what I've been saying for the last 3 years.
Yes. Yes, it's all there. Quoted right there with the links.
Wow. Jeez. I'm
Yes,
still like, whoa.
yes, he admitted it. It wasn't about New 52 was truly about rejuvenating the line and giving people different, like he said, different flavors, different type of, not the back to basics, not the basics. You have to broaden your audience. That's what they were trying to do. But here you go. He admitted it, that fandom began to control everything. And what did
Gatekeepers.
and gatekeepers. And what did they do? They made the line stagnant. Now you have where it's just set to just to comfort them. And then you alienated a fan base that was potentially growing, that was helping you grow as a company.
And good God, is this mirroring the Snyder fandom? Because you were growing. Man of Steel, BVS almost made $1 billion, but adjust for inflation, according to Nick, it reaches $1 billion. And then Justice League, Aquaman,
Yeah.
like, went up a little, reached $1 billion because it was primarily tied to whatever Justice League you wanted, and not only because of that, it was a good movie, but also it wasn't like hurt by Justice League. But the point is, look at how this mirrors, and wow, I have never had more of a favorite guy in the comic industry right now than Dan Didio, because this dude says it.
Yeah, so with telling the truth, and again, it kind of rubs me the wrong way that you wait until you leave the company to kind of
True,
air
you,
out
you should
everything.
push a little more because he was the top guy at DC. He could have said, "No, we're not doing that."
Yeah, and you know that this was a bad thing. Like you admitted in all of these interviews, you basically say we we put back what we knew
Was stagnant,
gave
yeah.
reason to reboot in the first place. And then we knew that we were going to become stagnant. We knew that we were only comforting one fandom, a certain set of fandoms. And then you admit to being lazy and scared
Oh my
of
gosh, that lazy
taking the
part is
risk.
like, chef's kiss.
Yeah, is and the fact DC is still in that state of the cycling of you're bringing back things that didn't sell with post crisis, and you're trying to make it work, but then you're also only relying on variant covers. Like every new number one has like tons of variants for some reason. And then you have the anniversary issues that have tons of variant covers for some reason. So you're stuck with that, and you're flooding the collectors. You're flooding the market for collectors, and then long term with the collectors, that issue becomes basically pointless, or the value isn't that great, and there you go, crashing the market. And that's the same thing that happened with Death of Superman. Basically, it was a gimmick. It, you know, a lot of people thinking that Superman was going to be dead forever, and then once he came back, the story and the issues basically became, the value of it didn't really matter. So here you go, people, um, the Superman books pretty much torpedoed in sales, and that pretty much crashed the market. Then you
Mm-hmm.
needed, then you had Kingdom come back, and um, I guess brought back a little bit of faith with the fandoms, with the readers interested in this story, and that's the cycle again. Then you didn't really do much with Kingdom Come after that. You know, it was supposed to be just a limited series, but at the same time, you could have expanded it, milked it a little bit more, and you have the marriage that they actually wanted to get rid of a year afterwards. So you
Well,
have this
yeah,
marriage.
again, it's like it didn't work. And I just love how he admits that was a driving force. It wasn't the primary thing, but it was a driving force. And I'm like,
It
thank you.
it was.
New 52, just by that sentence alone, but by that little turn of phrase, is now my even more my favorite era of DC.
Yeah, actually, there was another. I was looking for it. He actually posted his list of what he wanted to get rid of, and the marriage was on the like number one. It really
Ha!
was.
Suck it, Clovis, suck it.
Yeah. So if that was your number one thing, and you knew that implementing it back was wrong, why did you do it in the first place? And it was, again, you had this thing of wanting the Super Sons. So pretty much the reason why the marriage is back is only for Damien. But even Damien now, he doesn't have a relationship with John anymore. They aren't.
Since the age up, he hasn't.
Yeah, so in the age up, John has been this 20-year-old more than he was a 10-year-old. And again, that was only 2016. Bendis came 2017. So yeah, it was only a year and a half of him being a 10-year-old with Damien, and then you have Tomasi, like even his Super Sons sales were not that good. I think
No, it
his
wasn't. I have a couple of viewers that like to think that it was like the sales juggernaut. It definitely wasn't.
the the book, I think it sold 83,000. I
Not
think
bad.
it's not, but Superman and Wonder Woman hit 100K.
Which, speaking of that, so for those of you that don't know, I do another show called Under Two Capes, and by the way, subscribe to Comics League for more of these fantastic discussions. So I did an episode that was a sales analysis of Superman and Wonder Woman. It's one of the most popular one of the most popular podcast episodes I have. Go figure. So in it, Brit sent me this fantastic little chart that we're going to go over. So this is the Superman and Wonder Woman sales compared to the Trinity Rebirth book and the Superman Lois and Clark BS book. Now the first issue is like 94,000 or so. It's about 100,000.
This is pre-orders.
Yeah, 93
Yeah.
for Rebirth Trinity. So that's cool. I appreciate that because it's Trinity and all that stuff. Lois and Clark, 35,000.
Yeah. So with this chart, it is showing the pre-sales. Pre-sale estimates. So so with adjustable, you can adjust a little bit, but the overall thing, which Tony Daniel tweeted out, was that the first issue of Superman and Wonder Woman did sell over 100K. And so you have what they did was they were thinking that with Rebirth, of course, you couldn't have Superman and Wonder Woman having a book together anymore. Not even because they wanted to separate them, even as friends. They couldn't, even now, they really can't be. It's
Yeah,
awkward because
they
they were,
try to market it like they're best friends, and I'm like, are they though?
yeah, it's kind of like they're not even best friends. They're supposed to be, yeah, but
I
they
got
aren't.
I got news for you. Honestly, they felt more like friends in the New 52.
They, yeah, it was more friends. Even if they weren't a couple, they were still friends, and even you can still say they were best friends.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to go back to the post-crisis, this is more like the earlier parts of post-crisis when Clark was basically featured in Diana's books, and they acknowledged him being her best friend. But
Mm-hmm.
in the Superman books, because he's married to Lois, it's like their friendship cannot be acknowledged or is belittled and ignored.
Mm-hmm.
It's an imbalance for sure. So that's how it is now. We had the and that's the thing why I don't really want Diana featured in the Superman books, because
Not in these ones, no.
you would feel like she will end up used as a mouthpiece. And
Because guess what? So what I did when I was on my LCS, in like the dollar bins, they had like a crap ton of Rebirth early issues. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll check this out. I'll pick it up. It's only for like $1 each, so I wasn't really like putting out a lot. So I read through the a couple of Superman ones. There's either Superman or Action Comics. When I get to the part where okay, so Superman and Wonder Woman save Lois Lane and the kids or something like that. Lois Lane looks at Wonder Woman and goes, "Oh, this must be kind of odd for you with like you were with your Superman." He goes, "No, this actually feels more true." And I'm like, "What?" And I threw the book.
yeah, that was the Trinity, I think. And yeah, it's like Diana was used as a, even in the issue, I think at the end of the book of the Trinity First arc, there was like, now Lois and Diana are like sisters now. They're not rivals of rivals of having Clark, because it now they're just sisters. It's like, okay, yeah, they're not rivals because this isn't the Superman that she or the Clark that she knows and loving in the first place. So of course they're not rivals. You know, that would be even more awkward. Um, even Jargons, when he had the Doomsday, he had Diana fighting, and how he tried to write it was that they were like, she said something about it's good to fight alongside you again. And it's like they don't even know each other. And he
Yeah,
tried to give
exactly.
like a buddy fist bump or something like that. And it's like they're not friends. Why are you trying to is it would have been better if they could have like talked it out that yes, she was in love with another Clark and they can, make it less awkward. But what made it more awkward and just really messy was that the fact that you tried to force them to be friends or force her to, you know, again be a mouthpiece. And even in the movies, with when they tried to when they broke them up off screen and she became a mouthpiece for that. And the tie-in comic that didn't even sell either. She became a mouthpiece for that. Um,
Oh god,
with
that
Tama
BS.
yeah, with Tomasi, he had Clark say, Lois, of course, was insecure and why didn't he marry Wonder Woman? And he says, because she doesn't have a pulsar. It's like, okay, so Clark, you're being shallow because you're caring about a man-made award that, that really doesn't
That shouldn't
make
matter.
any sense. And it doesn't matter. Um, then you have just the whole thing of they don't even have her like if they want to make um the Trinity her name Lizzie. You can't even really call her Trinity because you would think of the Trinity, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. So Lizzie, you want to force them as the biological kids of the Trinity. But Diana has never actually had a relationship with John or Damien. Like she's never interacted with them in a sincere way. So how can their kids be friends now? None of this actually works naturally at all. It just seemed like you're just putting it together.
It's not
And
supposed to
that's
work
when,
naturally, but we're just supposed to shut up and take it.
yeah. And with her being, I mean, like I said, John and Damien are like 20 something years old. And she's well, in the future that Tom King is trying to create, she's 19 and they're like 40. So the age gap of this generation is just not right. It would be better if she was with like Aquaman's daughter that seems like to be the same age, or even if he
Okay. It was Rebirth, Action Comics 960, when Superman and Wonder Woman save Lois Lane. And
oh
then she goes, Diana, it's so good to see you again. I mean, it is. It's all right. I know what you mean. I really think Clark could be together. It might seem odd considering. No, not odd. It feels true.
yeah, it's so, I mean, you can tell, especially with knowing who wrote it, that it was just so on the nose and so contrived.
It's called vindictive.
Yeah, throwing a jab like that is just, it was so unnecessary. Especially that Jargon's Action Comics within the Rebirth wasn't selling that well. It really wasn't. Um
And yeah, and by the way, speaking of jargons, here's the funny part. Do you know who the villain he was fighting was?
Doomsday.
Doomsday.
Yeah. Again, it's crazy. I mean, you're and that's what Didio was talking about. is that you are recycling, doing the same things over and over and being stagnant. And now we have, and even with Jargon's being able to have his sequel as a backup, it was pointless because it had no, it seemed like it didn't have anything to say. And that is what Dan was talking about, is that he would rather have, risk being taken for stuff to be, told than just be in a comfort zone. So this is what happened with the sales. You have Superman and Wonder Woman that, again, people want to drag it and say that it was bad, say that that was in Clark's shadow or something like that. But if you actually read the book, Diana was so much more mature. She was her own independent character. She beat Zod and Feora. So it's kind of like, why um
She used
and
the Hellbat armor, and my whole point with Lois is that if you have the
to
problem
jump the
with
shark with
Lois,
her.
well, yeah, that, and it's like if you have to turn, because to make Lois relevant, they turn her into other characters. Like now they have her basically being Perry White. They have her using the Hellbat armor and defeating Darkseid. Yeah,
She did.
I think she did or something like that. The point is she knew how to use and operate the Hellbat armor, something that I'm pretty sure Batman wouldn't teach her.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that even Tomasi even had her fight the 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 Furies.
Mm.
She beat them, and it's kind of like how Catwoman in Tom King's run beat the Flashes. That's basically what they did with the
Mm-hmm.
Furies versus Lois. And it was kind of like, if you wanted her, she's just a reporter. She's a human. She can't do anything like that, regardless of the fiction, regardless of anything like that. If you want to say that she's the human, keeps Clark grounded and all that kind of stuff, why is she doing stuff that she shouldn't be doing in the first place? Then you have going back to the cells with the Trinity book. It was supposed to be where basically they're sacrificing the Superman and Batman book, or Batman and Superman book, with just the and Superman and Wonder Woman book, to combine it in a weird way that did not work at all. After that whole thing with the I think the whole promise of the book at first was New 52 Superman and New 52 Wonder Woman and Batman gets used to this new Earth older Superman. I think that was it, but when they did Rebirth and had to, that whole thing, it fell apart. And I also think that the initial writer had like a very controversial wanted to do a controversial political arc that would divide them.
Manipul wanted to have a political arc.
Yeah, it was. It was something political during the time of the election, and
Oh
it was
boy.
gonna be, yeah, it was gonna be something like, I think, Clark and Diana against it, but Batman, or Clark and Diana for it, but Bruce is against it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was something that was supposed to divide the Trinity, and that was scrapped, and he was taken off the book, and then the book just flopped. Like it was pretty much pointless after the whole reborn thing, because it didn't make any sense. It didn't make sense before, and it didn't make sense after. So then once that book ended, we had a Superman and Batman book, which Williamson had. And of course, Superman and Batman can have a book together because they're just bros, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they've always had a Superman and Batman book. Then you had, coming off the coming off Rucka's his Wonder Woman run. You had Liam Sharp try to do a Batman Wonder Woman
Oh yeah.
miniseries, and he let that be known that that didn't sell very well at all. And Superman and Wonder Woman, because again, the awkwardness of them having the romantic past, they didn't know whether they wanted to be a thing or not. So they couldn't even have team ups or anything like that. They basically had to be distant. And then you have John and trying to have Lois and everything. So yeah, they it's so obvious and so awkward that DC at that time wanted to keep them separated because you wanted so bad to alienate this fan base. And that pretty much shows how impactful the fan base was. If you this one fandom you're trying to alienate.
If you consider us this much of a threat, I'll take that as a compliment, as a matter of fact.
Right. So now you have I think Orlando after Steve and Diana broke up or whatever, that it that relationship or whatever didn't it was like it was something about Aphrodite died, so love died. And it's kind of like, okay, if
Oh
love
yeah.
was supposed to die all around the world, everybody like every other couple is together. It was editorial. I think the writer said it was editorial mandated that they broke up, that to break them up. So it's like,
Yay!
yeah,
Thank you. This is
yeah.
the one time DC editorial gave me something I wanted.
Yeah, I guess because they pretty much was like it even the editorial didn't know what to do with that relationship. Um so now you have I think Orlando. Yeah, Orlando, that was the first kind of tease that the Superman and Wonder Woman relationship was kind of back somehow. And it was turned into basically, from Diana's point of view, still that the relationship broke off because they put the world first.
And like you had like 5 volumes of them putting the world first, and they didn't break up. So
Yeah, it's kind of like a lot of the what what was explored in the book or presented, that Charles laid out. They took it, he turned it positive and for them to work it out, but to break them up, they turned it into a negative. So that whole
mm.
thing right there. Then you have Conrad and Clunan. I think it's really Conrad who wrote it, but he within the past Wonder Woman um run with them, the first part you have her like I think it was during the with Dr. Psycho or something like that, the milkman or something, and Diana was Clark was telling her that she can always talk to him. That was the first little tease within their run of Clark and Diana, sort of, getting back to the friendship that we had. You also, when she died, no, the first one was actually when she died in and came back in 750, I think, and they
Mm-hmm.
have the hug.
Also, you also have like in the Elseworlds, you had like Chip Zdarsky's book, The Last Ride, and what's also interesting because you told me that it's gonna be a flashback story and Tom King's story that shows like Superman and Wonder Woman's like friendship, and I'm wondering how that's gonna go.
Oh, that isn't a flashback. That is present day, and they supposed to go Christmas shopping.
Okay, the problem with that is that what happens to the plot of Wonder Woman being hunted by the government?
Yeah, I have no idea. It's the the third issue coming out is supposed to be like hinting or Trinity is introduced or something in the main book, and she has her backups of her being a little bit older. And then the fourth um the fourth issue is Diana with a boy that is terminally ill,
Mm-hmm.
and she basically makes like his last day the best day ever,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that that will be a very good issue that, really showcases Wonder Woman as she's supposed to be for children. That Tom King is hit the mark with that if it's, executed the right way.
Mm-hmm.
The fifth issue, I believe, is supposed to be featured the Wonder Girls, and they are against Diana and telling her to, I guess, surrender to the
Okay.
government.
Because that worked out really well for Steve Trevor.
And then after that, it's issue 6 is supposed to be, I guess, he said it's a breakaway issue. So it's like pretty much a random issue of
Okay.
them going Christmas shopping. I have no idea, like, where does that fit into anything? But yeah, he just wanted like a break issue for some reason.
I mean,
So
okay, we'll see.
I have no idea. I don't know, because the last time Tom King wrote them, it was in the Wonder Woman special, set during the mod era where she had the boutique. And in that era, Clark and Diana did have the computer matchmaking thing, and it was basically like, well, we can't be together, or they wanted to be, but it was, I don't know, it was just something kind of like just a tease here and there, not to be taken too seriously, but it was like they do match. But Tom King, he used the issue of from Lois's old book of, I guess it was a someone disguised as Wonder Woman or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like Lois was insecure, and she was like, Wonder Woman is the perfect match or whatever, but that wasn't the real Wonder Woman anyway. So Diana again was used pretty much as a mouthpiece at that time, was like, no, Clark and I are just friends or whatever. So he used that issue and his whole joke about the cop thing. So I really don't, he did write it pretty good of them having their date, going dancing, face painting and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was very cute, but those last 2 pages of
Oh
Clark just
yeah, I
saying,
remember that.
yeah, him just saying that we should be together because we're in the Justice League and we're strong and I don't have to worry about you. Okay, like, that's the basic shallow version of why they should be together. And you again put Lois in it. And then at the end, Diana's like, well, no, because you're a cop, or you're like a cop or something. And she goes, um, I don't know, she goes somewhere. And at the end, Clark,
Hashtag Lois ruins everything. That's got to be a new Comics League hashtag.
yeah. So I really don't know how Tom King um will address their relationship. I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because if he read the 800 issue, how Conrad wrote it. He wrote it very much ambiguous. I mean, the art wasn't ambiguous,
The art
but
was not ambiguous whatsoever. That I love how someone tried to argue with me on Twitter that they were like, "That's more like siblings love." How do siblings hold each other like that?
I don't know how holding your chin and touchy feely,
They touch
and
chests, okay? That ain't sibling love.
yeah, even the middle panel of that last page of Clark, like, having he's looking at Diana dreamily or whatever. No, that is not siblings at all. So you have that. Um, and just little bits and pieces here. And Tom King knows DC's lore. He so if he knows the detail of Batcat, whether they met in an alley, street, or whatever, in a boat, if you know that and understand that dynamic, understand Superman and Batman's
Yeah, right
dynamic,
here.
yeah, that at the dialogue is one thing because he's saying that what's beautiful. He's basically calling her beautiful.
Yeah, because he's looking at her when he says so much beauty. I'm like, dude.
And even the first panel, it's like Diana saying, "Here we are." It's like
While her
the way
hands
that they're
affectionately on his
on his
chest.
chest. Yeah, it's like here we are is very much. First of all, where are you? And second is like we is very
It
emphasized
and
this
it kind
scene.
of looks like she's trying to wrap her legs around him.
It's you know she was and the thing is Bertel said that she was told to like draw this. So
Mhm.
an editorial obviously approved it. And um the way it was written, um Conrad basically said it was ambiguous. It was supposed to be you can read it as friends, very close friends, or you can read it as maybe it's something, you know, maybe. But if that is what you want with Clark and Diana's relationship, I really don't mind that. I think it's pretty cute.
Mhm.
You can have them as just an ambiguous
Ambiguous. Yeah,
relationship.
exactly. That works.
I I think that it has a fun tension within it that you aren't confined, and that's the thing that made us love them as a couple anyway, is because their friendship means so much more when they are best friends and they have that closeness. You can feel that love building, so you root for them, and it's kind of like satisfying to see the scenario of Kingdom Come, or even Immortal Wonder Woman. You have them as like the last Justice Leaguers, as the last heroes on um at the end of the world,
Mhm.
the end of time together. And with that, when she says that she loves him more, it, with knowing that he is ready to sacrifice himself, and that when she closed her eyes, she see him so clearly. And the way even though she has on like the Green Lantern ring and Batman's belt, she it's emphasized that Batman and the Green Lantern, like, they're her friends. But the way that she wraps herself with Clark's cape,
Mhm.
and that whole thing of her monologue is about him, really emphasize their closeness in their relationship.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
again, it goes to the ambiguity even of Immortal Wonder Woman, is you think, maybe they are together. Even with Conrad and Cloonan trying to kind of like diffuse the whole controversy, and they were saying like, well, you can love your friend, or but then you have them saying, well, they are at the end of time, that obviously they've outlived, you know, who they once knew. So yeah, maybe they can be together. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that will make people keep talking about certain things.
And
Even when
that's the
this,
other thing. And Dan Didio also brought this up in the quotes that we brought up. Is I say the same thing about the Snyderverse. We're still talking about these movies 10 years down the line. DC really wants that level of discussion. We still talk about the New 52. We still talk about Superman and Wonder Woman, even though they haven't been a couple since 2016. And it's like, hey, if we're still talking about this stuff sustainably for years and years and years and years and years, DC should be pursuing that.
Yeah, because even with this page from Wonder Woman 800, when it first came out the night before or the day before, because the way that the distribution is kind of like some people get digitally early or it's released physically early.
Mm-hmm.
And someone tweeted it out, just tweeted the words saying that, SuperWonder is in the book. And it was so many people like, what's going on? What is it? And they were saying, I'll DM you, whatever, like that. So you had these tweets just circulating. And then the morning of, you had the page blasted everywhere on DC Twitter. And they were just like, what is DC trying to say? Are they together? What is this? And it's like, well, it's only a dream. But at the same time, it was about Diana having dreams. She's in everyone else's dream. Like, so Clark
And the
is
funny
very
part
much
is that so she sees Bruce as like an infantile kid.
yeah. So Bruce is like this angry man child, and as he's older, but then he turns into this little boy that's crying, that wants like a motherly love or something like that. So Diana comforts him as a mother, and she's comforting a child. And for you to say that that is romantic, I have no idea why you
Yeah,
would think that.
I'm starting to be a little concerned here.
Yeah, because that whole thing was, even with him saying that you are my rock or something like that, it's kind of like, well, first, no, because Bruce would never
If
say that.
anyone, Selena is his rock.
Yeah, but that's kind of weird to try to, whatever. But he still turned into that little boy, though. Like, there's no way you can turn this into romance, and he's a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
That's. But then you go to also with reading the dialogue, when Diana says that I don't know why I'm in your dream, it's basically like she did not even want to, she didn't think to go to Bruce, to be in his dream. And the person that she did want to go to after Bruce's, she said, let me go to him,
Mm-hmm.
which is Clark.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it says, she says, take me to him. And she goes, and the whole thing is that everyone knows that she's within their dream. Everyone is asleep. Everyone is very knowledgeable and knowing. So basically, yes, very much so. Clark is aware that he's having this dream of holding Diana in space or whatever, like whatever they're doing, holding, being touchy. He's very much aware of this dream.
Yeah, which is really funny because I'm like, if this is a Clark stream too, is Clark dreaming about Diana too?
Yeah, that's basically what it was. It was that they were having their own dreams. Like, um, Steve, Steve's dream, no, Etta's dream was first. Etta was like, she's the old classic golden age Etta, and
Mm-hmm.
she's having like a picnic or something like that. I don't know, it was weird. But then Diana comes to her dream and she's like, oh, you're here. You know, Diana just kind of like pops up. And so with everyone having their own type dream, Steve, he was in an aircraft or something because he was watching a movie. So he was dreaming about flying and in a battle. Um, Siegfried was dreaming about, I guess, fighting a horde of something.
Who's Siegfried?
And the Asgardian
Oh,
Viking.
the one that she met when she was in Valhalla. Okay.
Yeah, him. And then it was the Wonder Girls. They had a dream, and Diana showed up to help them, and they knew. Then, of course, it really showed that everyone is conscious of Diana being in a dream, because when Bruce woke up, he's like, basically, Diana, you're somehow right there. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, so everyone knows that she is in their dream.
Hmm.
So with Clark, it's very much known that he he knows that he is doing what he's doing. So with him showing Diana whatever he's supposed to show her, with them being in space, their whole conversation, with the whole touchy feeling, yeah, he's right there having this dream with or of Diana. And
Yeah, and that's the funny part. Have you noticed this in the past, before New 52? I just want to say this. Whenever Clark has like a dream of his true desires, like
it's
Black
always
Mercy or anything
Diana.
like that, it's either he's not married to Lois or it's where he's married to Diana. Isn't that kind of interesting?
Yeah, it is very interesting. The first time you have the dream sequence is, or it's even with Lena too. So
Or
you
that, but I'm
have,
saying not married to Lois.
yeah, she's never in the dreams. Never.
Never. And I'm confident saying that absolute statement. Never.
Even with the Trinity um crossover within the Wonder Woman book, I think it was, I want to say 145. Well, the very first time the Trinity, part one and two, is when they're stuck. I don't think it's the Black Mercy. I think so. Um, but they are all having the same dream. Clark, Diana, and Bruce. They're stuck in the same. And Clark and Diana are together. They are married, expecting a baby, and everything like that. And the thing that hurts um, about that story is that at the very end, it's like, of course, Clark breaks Diana's heart, because is that they both have the same dream of being together. But the reality is Clark is, of course, with Lois. So basically, editorial or the writer had to write in that his actual supposed desire is to be with Lois in reality, but his dream says a total different thing.
That's not how the Black Mercy plant works, though.
Yeah, I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it was the Black Mercy. I'll have to reread that book, that story. But yeah, it's like his dream was to be with Diana, but consciously, um, with his, and she does it with the Wonder Dome, is like what's in your mind and what's in your heart, and it's Lois that comes up. But it's kind of like, well, of course they will have it in reality, the conscious of him, thinking about Lois, but still it doesn't match his dream though. His complete desire, which showed Diana's desire was for world peace, was for marriage and expecting a child or children. I think Bruce, his dream or something was that Gotham was better. And
Yeah.
then Clark was the same thing, being a successful reporter, um, world peace, married to Diana. They were expecting a child, and that's it. And they were, and even Bruce being like their, the godfather of their kid. So yeah, that was the whole dream, and then you change it in reality.
It just
That's
made no sense.
Yeah. So that's the thing that I don't like. Again, why I wouldn't want Wonder Woman to be in the Superman books, especially when they don't have the respect for
No.
her.
No, because I don't want her to be turned into whatever that was in the Rebirth book.
Yeah. So it is best for Superman to be in the Wonder Woman book, but at the same time with Tom King, because he is in favor of like the quote unquote classic pairings. He like Batcat. He
Well,
does like Lois and
here's the
Clark.
thing: as long as he's not pro Wonder Bat, I'll endure.
I don't think so, but
Well,
yeah,
no,
it's
because he's very pro like Batcat, and that gives
yeah,
me
he
hope
is.
that the father of Lizzie is not going to be Batman.
Oh well, no, that's completely out for sure. That's not even a question. That wasn't even a question or an option. Period.
Some people on Twitter were, and I'm like, you realize he wrote a miniseries called Batcat, right?
The Twitter, of course, will say that because they even use what the plagiarized story he had. They use that
And
to
someone tried to do that, and I said, that's actually taken from it's actually a copy, basically a copy of a Superman and Wonder Woman story, right? Which was the biggest
and
bait and
that's the
switch in history, but we've talked about that.
right, and that's the thing. If even though Tom King didn't want to admit it, if he knows these stories, and like I said, he knows the lore of DC, he knows Batcat's history, he knows the different characters. I'm I would hope that he would know Clark and Diana's history as friends. You can write them, like I said, as friends with the ambiguous feelings or just friends. Even the platonic love that they have is still it still has this hint of romance within it. Even just that. But please don't try to force in Lois or John. Don't do
Yeah.
that because it's like it's pointless. If they are, you didn't have Diana in when you had uh the best friends arc. Even with his Batman run, he was trying to do um like I said the double date issue. That was only them. Diana wasn't even mentioned. Then with the story that she was in, that was actually supposed to be a Green Lantern story. So, she was basically wasn't supposed to be in the run in the first place. So, respect what's actually within the Wonder Woman. Even if he read Perez too, you know, even that will give you that she had these feelings for Clark, and even though that was a bait and switch, he was still her best friend. Whatever Wonder Woman comic you pick up with Superman featured, they have this underlying, feelings for each other, but they respect each other. And that's all we ask for is not to go below the belt, be petty, like Rebirth was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's oh yeah. Now to be clear, as we wrap up, if you like Rebirth, more power to you. Because there is some stuff that I genuinely like about Rebirth. I liked its emphasis on Jessica Cruz because I think she is a fantastic character that doesn't get a lot of attention. I liked a lot of the Rebirth Batman stuff. So there were good things. We're just saying that the good did not necessarily outweigh the bad.
And the fact that Twitter is so hell bent on saying that it was like DC's savior when it was,
No, no,
yeah.
no. It was
And this
clearly not.
and the cells, they act like it was just like they struck gold. And no, that wasn't it at all. Here's your quotes from the man himself saying that they were stagnant, you know.
Yeah, exactly. The man that was like behind DC entirely. It's incredible. But on the meantime, I think that that's a good place to wrap up. This was a fantastic episode. So, Britt, do you have any stories that you want to tease us with?
Okay, so I have more Austria one shots, and this one is you know how Clark has his planetarium and zoo with animals, exotic animals from other planets. Well, Austria will be building her own zoo, but her zoo will be more mythical, weird animals from all across the galaxy and other dimensions type, just this weirdness going into her little world as a little toddler, with the gods and everything. Then there's more one shots that I have of Clark and Diana will be playing Twister.
Oh boy.
And
Oh boy, I see where this is going.
and it was really inspired by the unpublished chapter 14 of Kingdom Come.
Wait, they were gonna play
When
Twister in Kingdom Come?
No, it was actually Diana talked about like getting pinned on the wall.
Oh,
So
okay. I see what you're going for.
yeah, so it's gonna be something fun, and yeah, it's very much inspired by that. And of course we have the ongoing finishing up the Athens story, more finishing up special bonds, the Aries story, and just and even awakened desires. And then we have our story,
Oh
my
yes.
emotional roller coaster.
Oh yes, this is gonna be good. Yeah, and so we're gonna talk about that after we get off stream. But oh yeah, we got some stuff coming in the pipeline. So
Yeah.
hope you guys enjoy that. And again, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know below what you guys thought of Rebirth, and if you find what Dan Didio said compelling. But stay heroic, everyone. We will see you in the next episode. Thanks. Bye.